Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 weeks to a more purposeful you. And this week we are on week 19 signals, and we have a very, very special guest, Alla Weinberg. She and I became friends. It was like 2011, I think. We went through the CTI leadership program, and it's a 1-year intensive program where you get to know yourself and everybody in your tribe. And so Alla and I, we grew a lot together. And I think when you grow with someone, you really bond with them because they see sides of you that, are not polished.
I was gonna say we see the good, the bad, and the ugly of each other.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm super excited. But for those watching that don't know Alla like I do, here's a little bit about her. So organizations need what you bring to the table. So Alla Weinberg specializes in helping companies build cultures where people feel safe, respected, and able to do their best work. She is CEO of Spoken Wheel, a people and team development company. Alla is a workplace relationship expert with training from the Coactive Training Institute, CTI, and from Organizational Relationship and Systems Coaching, ORSC, which I definitely need to get some training from them. I've been for years. It's on my list. It's on my bucket list. So she is former senior manager of executive leadership development at Salesforce, the world's #1 CRM software. So welcome to the show, Alla.
Thank you so much for having me, Corry. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited to learn from you, and for all of our viewers and our watchers to also learn from you. And I'm really excited about the culture of safety that you're creating.
Me too.
Yeah. So our topic, signals. What did you think about this week's message?
What really came to me about this week's message is that we get information from more than one place. So oftentimes I think we think of getting information as intellectually, right? But there's information available to us from other areas. So from our heart, from our gut, from our emotions. And just like a light signal, which tells you when to stop, when to go, when to slow down, all that type of information is also trying to tell you something. And so when it's important to tune in to more than one type of intelligence so that we get the full spectrum of information and can make the right decision to move forward with whatever we're trying to do in our life.
Yeah, well said. I think in this section, there's the example of having a headache.
Yes.
And, we get a headache, so we're like, okay, well, let me take a Tylenol and just make it go away. But what's causing the headache?
That's body intelligence. It's trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
And then we need to learn to listen to it differently so we'll really understand the information that it's giving us.
Yeah. So from your ORSC training, how does this come into play in relationships? Signals.
In relationships, what often happens is that there are these unconscious signals that we send to each other that we can become aware of, that we normally kind of miss or dismiss. And in ORSC terminology, it's called edges. And so maybe you're having a conflict with somebody or just a discussion and you're getting fidgety, like your body's getting fidgety, or you're starting to sort of space out and go somewhere else. There's all these little tells that your body's actually demonstrating to the other person that you're in a relationship with what's really going on with you, that you may not be aware of. And so as somebody in a relationship, you can start to notice and pick up on some of those signals and ask and actually slow down and ask different questions. Wait, what's really going on for you right now? Or what are you concerned about? Or what are you scared is going to happen if we do X, Y, and Z, right? So again, it's just a different signal of information, a different source of information and intelligence that's important to pay attention to, not just the most overt content that maybe somebody's just speaking out loud.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times we react to whatever signals the loudest. So whether it be, and I wrote down, you mentioned signals either through our thinking, our heart, our gut, or our emotions. And so, we might get triggered and have intense emotions, and then we're responding from that. So it's like the signals make us go haywire. Is that?
They do. And in my book, I actually write about that when we're triggered or in a place where, again, our nervous system believes that we're not safe. Not consciously, so this is unconsciously, like our nervous system does not believe that we're safe. We're going to not have as much access to our thinking ability, to our prefrontal cortex, right? Like literally the blood will be taken out of that part of our brain and redistributed to our arms, our legs, in preparation to fight or flight, okay? In preparation to survive or beat back any kind of threat. And research has shown that our operating IQ drops by half when we feel unsafe, when we're in a threatened state, than we would normally be able to have. And so in those situations, we literally can't think. Like physiologically, we can't think and we don't have access to our full intelligence.
Yeah. And I haven't read your book yet, but I'm definitely going to buy it and read it. What are some of the things that leaders do in organizations? Or I shouldn't say leaders. What are some of the things that people do or say in organizations that lower the sense of safety? Like, do you kind of have like a top 5 or?
Oh yeah, absolutely, easily.
Okay, let's hear it.
So one of the biggest things that people do is dismiss emotions. Somebody will say, oh, I'm worried about that. Oh, you don't need to worry about that. Everything's fine. Or, hey, we can fix it. Like, this is how we can solve it. Like, you start to solve it for the person, right? Or to just minimize it and be like, no, everything's okay. Like, you're overreacting, right? That's not what's going on. Those kinds of dismissals diminish safety, because now I'm like, oh, it's not actually safe to express my emotions, for example, right? And the next time you just won't say anything because it didn't feel good. That interaction didn't feel good. And so you're just next time you won't say anything. Another thing that people do, again, I don't think maliciously, but maybe, everybody's under a lot of stress. We're trying to figure out how to complete something. People are coming up with ideas and somebody will say, no, that's not feasible. We can't do that. Or that's a dumb idea. Again, like anything that puts people down and then, and is dismissive in that way. Next time, I'm not going to want to share anything. I'm not going to want to share any ideas. I'm going to think twice. I'm like, do I really tell this person anything or not? Right. And one of the biggest threats to safety is, let's say there is a person within the organization or the team that has harmed somebody in some way, but more executive individuals are protecting that person. There's no like even acknowledgement or admission of harm. So I'm seeing that some people get protected and they're not accountable for behavior that is harmful. That is like a killer of psychological safety. Like that person is at that point looking for a new job.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So basically I heard the dismiss, solve or fix, minimize, that's kind of different variations of invalidating people. Would you say that? Invalidating. And then the whole not possible. So just shutting people's ideas down.
Yeah.
And then lack of accountability for, well, you said protecting.
Lack of protection, honestly.
Yeah, protecting the people that are actually doing something wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when those types of behaviors happen and the signals are coming, the person just shared an idea and it gets dismissed, or they are complaining and then the person leading starts giving them unsolicited advice. And, we get these signals. What's next? What's the next recommended step? I'm just like putting you on the spot. Hopefully that's
Fine. For the individual that's experiencing that.
yeah. Because that's what this topic is about
Yeah.
listening to our signals and getting
Yes.
curious, like at the headache, why,
Mhm. I think it's important and this is tough, I think, but it's important for folks to take a real accounting of their level of safety and protection in the organization that they're in. I think a lot of us are often very hopeful that we're in a great environment, we have supportive colleagues and managers, and that's not always the case. And so to be real with yourself about that, it's like, what's going on, and do I really have the ability to change this or not? And so an accounting, like a real, it's kind of a hard look, is really important for that individual to do. Because there are situations where if you have a good relationship with your manager, for example, you could come to them and say, hey, when you were dismissive and that idea, like it really upset me. And it kind of like, I kind of feel like I don't want to contribute anymore. And you could repair it. You could actually create some kind of restoration in that relationship. But if you don't have that, or you don't have anyone to go to, you don't really have the support, it's important to admit that to yourself.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because you're basically saying to get real with yourself.
You have to get real. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the quote at the top. It's a Maya Angelou quote. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. So it's like, say there's a dynamic in the workplace or a dynamic at home, and we're like, I don't like it with this other person, the way that they talk to me or whatever. We can try to work it out with that person. But if that person's not willing to take ownership, make changes, it might be that our attitude shifts from there's nothing I can do because they won't change to I have a friend. I do once a month, we do like a little Bible study get together at my house. And one of the gals in our group, she's been in a rough working environment, a not safe working environment for a long time. And she just like literally like finally after years, like got the aha to make a change. And it was exactly what you're saying. Sometimes the hardest person for us to admit something to is ourselves. Yeah.
I think it's important to know when to grit and when to quit. It really is important to know that.
Yeah.
And again, it takes a real deep honesty with yourself, because oftentimes we get these signals like, this is not okay with me. Something's, off. I don't feel safe. We get these signals from ourselves, from our bodies, right? And then what we normally try to do is to think, oh, we're going to change somebody so that I feel better. I'm going to ask somebody to behave differently, or I'll even change myself so we don't get into the same situation anymore, and then I'll feel better. But none of that actually feels better at the end. And we certainly don't have control over anybody else.
No, I love what you said. When to grit or when to quit. That's really good.
And those are the signals that can, like, I think paying attention, like you were saying in that chapter, paying attention to those signals will give you clarity of, no, I need to have a conversation. It may be hard, but we can work this out, or I need to quit and I need to find a different place to be or to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that certain personalities tend to lean towards the grit and certain personalities towards the quit? Or is it just depends?
So we have, something that I study and I really enjoy is the Enneagram system, and I don't know if you're
Yes.
like it. Okay.
You know what's my number?
Huh? I don't know.
Yes.
Which one? What is it?
Guess my number in the
Oh,
Enneagram.
yes. A 7.
Yes. Let me guess yours. And I always tell Rusty, I'm like, I am not good at typing people. So I would guess either a 1 with a 9 wing. Well, that's what I would guess. Or a 9.
I'm a 2.
Oh, you're a 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So,
I do have a lot of 9 in me. I'm very strong on the 9. So I
okay.
can see how that can get mixed up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, because I was guessing a 1 with a 9 wing. And so your 2
I have a 1
has
wing.
the 1 wing. So,
And I do lean strongly into it sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
in that system, they have what's called 3 instincts,
Yeah.
which is the way that, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Just because people following, they're like, what's this number thing? What's the Enneagram? So can you just like really quickly in a nutshell, describe what the Enneagram is, and then we'll go into the centers.
Yes. So the Enneagram is a personality typing system. Ennea means 9, gram means a drawing. So it's a drawing of 9. It's a diagram of 9 personality systems. Our personality is our core strategy for surviving in the world. And throughout human history, people have identified 9 different core strategies that people have for surviving in the world. So a core 7 strategy is to experience it all, to live life to the fullest, to have freedom, and to avoid pain. That's kind of the main motivation or strategy of a 7. That's Corry. The main motivation or strategy of a 2, which is my type, is to be liked and appreciated. And I feel safe. And I feel like my strategy in surviving the world is when I feel like people like and appreciate me. And then there's also, with the system, there's 3 instincts, which are 3 different ways that each person, each type feels safe. So your core type never changes, but your instinct may. And there's 3 instincts. There's a self-preservation instinct, which is, do I have my basic human needs met? Shelter, food, finances, clothing, all of that, right? Yes, that's me. I'm the helper. There's also a 1-to-1 instinct, which is, do I have really strong, intense 1-to-1 connections with folks? And I feel safe when I do, and I feel less safe when I don't. And then there's a social instinct, which is, do I belong to a group? And will the group protect me? And if I don't feel like I have belonging or acceptance into groups, then I don't feel safe. So kind of going back to your original question, I think people who have the self-preservation instinct are less likely. So it doesn't matter what type you are, but if you have that instinct, they're less likely to quit. They're much more likely to grit. Because having material financial security is so important.
Okay. So
we can literally talk for an hour about the Enneagram system.
No, I know. Me too. And I'm also trying to be mindful of our loved ones watching. Well, I don't care about the topic. We can switch it. But just people listening, I'm really excited about the Enneagram, and I'm gonna eventually do a series just on the Enneagram. But where did you get trained, or who's your favorite go-to in terms of Enneagram content?
I trained at the Integrative Enneagram Institute.
Oh, okay.
And you can find them at ie29.com.
Okay, awesome. So the Enneagram is, it's kind of going back to tie it to our topic miraculously, is that our signals, we can have higher self-awareness and understanding when we study something like the Enneagram, because it helps us not be confused why, this interaction is giving us a headache, or, why we're getting this visceral reaction, or so.
You feel the Enneagram because it's specifically, it's a system of motivation. Like if you can't tell somebody's type by behavior, because it's really about their motivation, their core motivation. That's why it's like hard to type somebody just by observing them.
Right.
Because of that, the motivation tells us, and if you study the system, it will tell you, why do you think the way you think? Why do you feel the way you feel? Why do you behave the way you do? Why do you react the way you do, right? And what I have found working and coaching people using the Enneagram system is that each type has their own unique signals. And once you become aware of it, it's not taking over anymore. It's not overpowering anymore. Now you can make choices. You're like, oh, this is a trigger of mine. I feel limited, like for a 7, like feeling limited is really hard. Like, oh, I feel limited in this situation. Okay, let me actually take a pause here and reflect as to what I really need and what I want to do next about that, rather than like a knee-jerk reaction of, I quit, I'm gone. Like, I don't want to be boxed in, so.
Exactly. Yeah. As a 7, 7s we're a frustration type. So, and get bored type. So there's the avoiding pain, there's the frustration, and then there's the avoiding boredom, those kinds of things. So I know now when I'm listening to my signals, I can kind of separate with like, oh, has to do with my Enneagram type versus there's actually something I need to correct. Because a lot of times I just need to lean in and suffer well, because like it's been a huge release to realize that I get frustrated a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm an idealistic frustration type. So I have all these idealisms. So it's like, it's funny because people have said
to have the difference in reality. Like you have that beautiful picture, but that's not what reality is like.
And for honestly, for years, I had imposter syndrome around it because I am a very optimistic person and I like joy and happiness, but I feel frustration probably equal, if not more, than I feel the optimism that people think I'm all about. And so this is a really great tool to help us get the signals. Go ahead.
Frustration is a low level intensity anger, right? Like, and so anger, if we're talking about signals and emotions, anger is such a beautiful emotion because it does propel you into momentum and it does motivate you. It's really about action. It's about taking action, right? Sometimes it's an action to stop something that's not okay with you. Sometimes it's a let's get unstuck and actually have forward movement sort of action, or even, hey, there's something in the world that's not okay with me and I'm going to move and change it, right? And so each emotion, because it is a signal, our emotions are signals, is giving us information. That's kind of where I started in our conversation. And then the information of anger is, what needs to happen? What do I need to protect? What's not okay with me? Like, these are all good questions to ask when there's the signal of anger.
So we use the signal to get curious and get clear. And it's funny that the way that obviously nothing about this recording is scripted, like we're just jamming and flying together, which is so fun. But when I wrote this in 2010, I knew nothing about the Enneagram, but it's funny because I don't know if you remember that I talk about irritation, which is frustration, and so I had said in here, some of the synonyms of irritation are motivation, stimulus, and provocation.
Which is anger. Like, those are exactly the functions of anger. And irritation and frustration, they're just low level anger, whereas like rage would be high level anger, right? Because each emotion, we have different intensities of each, but it's still anger. And you got it, you nailed it in there, where it's about motivation and stimulation and provocation and moving forward. So that's the role of anger.
So what are some of your best practices for yourself or for others to use signals in a way that is intentional and purposeful, because this whole book is 52 weeks to a more purposeful you. So how can we use these signals in an intentional way?
I think just even having the mindset of it's a signal is key. Like just taking that, and then you get curious. You're like, what is this signal trying to tell me? How is it trying to help me? How is it trying to protect me? Because usually, especially from an emotional perspective, that's what emotions are there to do. They're there to help us and protect us and keep us safe and keep us alive, right? And so it's about taking a pause. I have an emotion, not jumping into action right away, taking a pause, being like, and getting real curious. What is it trying to tell me? How is it trying to protect me? What's not okay with me? Or what am I feeling great about? What do I want to continue? What do I feel grateful for? Or what do I need to change? Like, you just start to ask questions of it. You can even talk to that signal or to that emotion as if it were another person, and you're having a dialogue with it. You can ask it, hey, what do you want me to know? I've asked that of my emotions. Like, you just say, I'm lost, I'm confused. I hear you. You're trying to tell me something. I don't know what it is. What do you want me to know? And at that point, you don't need to think. You just need to hear it. You just need to let the answer emerge. And that's the way to clarity, and that's the way to know what your purpose is and what to do next.
Yeah, and I wish we had more time, because we would go in the whole IFS, cul-de-sac. But for now, to kind of connect to what we've already covered, when we, like you said, recognize that it's a signal. So whether it's race, because we talked about the 4 categories of signals: thoughts, our heart, our gut instincts, body stuff, or our emotions. So when any of those things, like alarm clocks, wake us up, the first thing is to just recognize it's a signal trying to tell us something. Then the second thing you said was to get curious. What is it trying to say? What is the message? And I like what you said about you can talk to it and personify it.
That's right.
Which is essentially doing some internal family systems, IFS work, which I would like to have you back, and we will talk about that.
Yes.
But getting curious, okay, not in my stomach. What are you trying to say? And I actually did this morning. Like, a little situation happened, and I got my journal out, and I was like, my chest is clenched. I feel like I have a sock in my throat. I'm like, okay, what do you want? What do you need? What's going on? And then I got clear what I needed to do, what I wanted, what was the signal telling me. Then I took a conscious choice, and then everything was smooth. But if I wasn't conscious of the signal, it's reactivity in whatever way that.
What is the first thing that people do when they're not conscious of a signal? Blame somebody else or something else.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that people go to. Blame.
Discharge pain, right?
Right. We just go blame right away. So instead of blame, my invitation is to curiosity. So the answer is actually within you. So instead of facing outward and saying, they made me feel this way, or XYZ is happening, the situation is happening and it feels terrible. You want to ask yourself instead, like, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What's the information it's trying to give me? So it's turning your attention back on you and getting really, really curious about it without judgment, which can be hard, I think, sometimes. But but again, if you just think of it as information, I'm just trying to get some information. The more information you have, the better decision you're going to be able to make.
Yeah. So, so we kind of talked about these ideas in the moment. My last question before we kind of land the plane is, what do you have best practices that are like proactive habits or methods to being ready to listen to the signals in a productive and purposeful way?
I do. My number one recommended practice, and I always teach all my coaching clients this, is to start noticing the sensations in our body.
Mhm.
That's how our feelings show up. That's the way our feelings show up as signals.
Mhm.
And just focus on the sensations without story around it. Meaning, like you were saying, oh, you felt like there was a sock in your throat, right? That's a sensation, or a tightness, or a numbness, or a heaviness, or knot. You said a knot in your stomach is where it started, right?
Mhm.
And so what I recommend people do is, you wake up, you do your morning routine before you start your day, you take 2 minutes, honestly, 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and you just do a body scan, starting from the top of your head, slowly moving down. What does it feel like? Oh, there's a tightness in my jaw. I notice, like I feel some tension in my shoulders. Oh yeah, there's like a bit of a heaviness in my chest. My legs feel numb. You just notice all of that. And then you ask yourself, what sensation wants my attention right now? You just ask yourself. And then you get curious. What are you trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? And you get your information.
Yeah.
And science has proven that we have neurons in our heart and we have them in our gut, not just in our brain. So there is information in our body waiting for you, and it's signaling you with these sensations. I have information for you. So go on a treasure hunt, get that information.
Yeah, I posted today about, we're recording on Friday. I'm like, we're getting ready to go into the weekend, and how many of us, our weekends are just so busy with yes to this baby shower, this birthday party, this soccer game, this. And it's like, when in the mornings, if we do this body scan, sometimes, like, say there's a knot in our stomach, and we focus on that, and we're like, well, what is this telling me? And then we realize, I don't want to go to that ribbon cutting at the chamber today at 4, and we get honest, like, I don't want to do this, or I want to stay home in my jammies instead, or, but a lot of times we don't listen to our true desires. And then we're people pleasing, and we're spreading ourselves so thin, and we're not rejuvenating. And then, Monday, here we go again, back to the.
When we override ourselves, we actually erode trust and safety in ourselves. That's a way that we cause that to diminish for ourselves.
What a perfect way to finish this. Can you say that one more time?
When we override what we truly deeply want, we erode trust and safety with ourselves.
I hope people watching, you remember that. I'm sure there's lots of other really great things that people will take away, but I think, man, we might have a lot more peace in the world if we stop betraying ourselves. Healthier boundaries in relationships, at work, at home. So this was wonderful. So Alla's book, what is it called?
Culture of Safety, Building a Work Environment Where People Can Think, Collaborate, and Innovate.
Awesome. So say it one more time. It kind of cut out for me.
A culture of safety.
A culture of safety. Okay, so people can look up A Culture of Safety
on Amazon.
On Amazon, which I am doing that, by Alla Weinberg, and get her book. Let's all create a culture of safety at work and at home. And let's see, next week's topic is going to be alignment. So please join us next week and have an awesome week. Bye-bye. Thank you, Alla.